when we heard that Lee Min-ho and Gong Hyo-jin would star together in a series called When the Stars Gossip, expectations skyrocketed, literally. After all, we're talking about two massive names in K-drama, with legions of fans around the world. Lee Min-ho is known for leading classics like Boys Over Flowers and The Heirs, while Gong Hyo-jin is queen of romantic comedies, with hits like When the Camellia Blooms. With a cast like this, it seemed like nothing could go wrong, but unfortunately it did, or at least it's heading that way. The story had potential, a romance between a doctor and an astronaut, with much of the plot unfolding in space. The premise combines science, drama, and romance ingredients that, in theory, could make for an unforgettable series. Lee Min-ho plays Gong Ryong, a doctor involved in space missions for personal and professional reasons. Gong Hyo-jin, on the other hand, brings to life Eve Kim, a spaceship captain who is extremely focused on her work. The two characters cross paths in a setting far removed from the usual cafes or streets of Seoul, taking us straight to the environment of a space station. If the plot seemed promising, the budget only heightened the expectations. The series cost no less than 50 billion won, roughly $40 million. For a K-drama, that's an astronomical figure, literally Hollywood level. All this money was invested in visual effects, futuristic sets, and of course, the star-studded cast. However, as the saying goes, money doesn't always guarantee success, and that's where the problems begin. Despite all the production, big names, and massive budget, the series failed to take off. On paper, When the Stars Gossip had everything to be a huge success, but in practice, it's turning out to be one of the biggest flops of Lee Min-ho's career, and a low point for Gong Hyo-jin. Now that you know about the series and the stars involved, let's dive into the reasons why this drama fell from grace. Now, let me tell you what's really bothering people about When the Stars Gossip, and unfortunately, it's a lot. Despite all the anticipation surrounding the project, its execution leaves much to be desired. Let's start with the acting, which should have been one of the highlights considering the caliber of the cast. Lee Min-ho, known for his commanding presence and for playing serious and somewhat mysterious characters, simply doesn't deliver what we expected. Instead, his character, Gong Ryong, comes across as silly and out of place most of the time, a complete departure from his previous work. For fans of his career, it's frustrating to see him fail to bring depth to the role. A doctor involved in space missions should be someone more complex and compelling, but Gong Ryong feels simplistic, almost cartoonish in some scenes, which undermines the actor's talent. Speaking of frustration, the romantic subplots are a whole other issue, or rather, a series of unnecessary chapters. First, we have Gong Ryong dating a chaebol, the daughter of a powerful CEO. Their love story starts shallow and stays that way. She falls for him because he's the handsome doctor who helped her during a critical moment when she suffered a miscarriage. And that's it. There's nothing more. Their connection seems purely superficial, with no scenes or dialogues to genuinely justify the relationship. There are no memorable moments, no conflicts that make us root for them, and no heartfelt displays of affection. It's a romance that, from the beginning, fails to spark any interest. If that weren't bad enough, the romance with the main female lead manages to be even worse. Gong Ryong falls in love with Eve Kim, played by Gong Hyo-jin, essentially because he'd looked at her once, and just like that, he's in love. There's no buildup, no tension, and no moments that explain why he's interested in her beyond her looks. This is particularly disappointing when you consider that Gong Hyo-jin is known for creating iconic couples in her dramas. In When the Camellia Blooms, for example, she delivered incredible chemistry with the male lead, making audiences fall in love along with them. Here, none of that magic is present. Their dialogues are forgettable, and their interactions lack charm. The relationship between the two feels more like a script obligation than something organic. For a series that spent so much money, it's almost unbelievable how they managed to mess up such a crucial element. Another major issue is the antagonist. Oh Young-se, who plays the chaebol's ex-boyfriend and the father of the baby that was lost, doesn't convince. On paper, he's supposed to be a figure that causes conflict and tension, but that just doesn't happen, or at least not in the way it should. Perhaps it's because we're used to seeing Oh Jung-se in phenomenal roles, like the autistic brother in It's Okay to Not Be Okay, where he delivered one of the most moving and complex performances of recent years. Here, he seems uncomfortable in the role, and the audience can't buy into him as a villain. His scenes feel lackluster, and he ends up more like a secondary figure with no charisma, rather than a character who truly impacts the story. It's almost as if the script didn't know what to do with him, which only highlights the lack of planning in many aspects of the series. To make matters worse, there's the setting. Choosing to have much of the series take place on a spaceship seemed bold and promising. After all, space is always an intriguing backdrop, full of opportunities for action, mystery, and even epic romantic moments. But in practice, this choice made the drama dull. Scenes are almost always set in the same same closed environment, making the story's pacing feel slow. There's a lack of changes in scenery or impactful events to add more dynamism to the series. The result is a sense of repetition, as if you're watching the same thing unfold in every episode. Moreover, the writing doesn't help, despite the promise of being a unique and different series. When the Stars Gossip leans on poorly executed cliches and uncharismatic characters, there are no surprising twists or scenes that leave a lasting impression. The result is a story that fails to evoke emotion, excitement, or engagement. And if the audience doesn't feel invested in the story, how are they supposed to keep watching? The series also struggles with pacing. Many scenes drag on without purpose, while others that could have been more developed are rushed. This creates a disjointed experience, where it feels like you're watching several disconnected stories instead of a cohesive narrative. Even scenes meant to be emotional or dramatic fail to deliver impact, whether due to uninspired direction or dull dialogue. Another standout issue is the lack of realism in certain situations. We know dramas often take creative liberties, but in When the Stars Gossip, some choices are downright laughable. For instance, the interactions on the spaceship seem entirely disconnected from what you'd expect in such an environment. The dynamics between characters don't make sense, and even basic details, like the rules for coexisting in such a confined space, are ignored. This breaks immersion for the viewer and makes the scenes feel amateurish. In summary, When the Stars Gossip is a combination of poor choices. The lead actors' performances are disappointing, the romances are shallow and lack chemistry, the antagonist doesn't deliver as expected, and the setting ends up being a weak point instead of something innovative. It's a shame to see so much potential wasted on a project that had everything to be amazing. With a budget of 50 billion won, we expected much more. Instead, we're watching a drama that feels lost in space, and not in a good way. If specialized critics were already unkind to When the Stars Gossip, the ratings only confirm how much the series is struggling. According to recently released data, the drama has reached the lowest ratings in the careers of both Lee Min-ho and Gong Hyo-jin. In a recent episode, the national viewership in South Korea dropped to just 1.8%. To put it in perspective, this is far below average for productions featuring such renowned stars. For international audiences, who also eagerly anticipated the premiere, the reaction has been similarly negative. Comments on forums and social media reflect widespread frustration. Many have pointed out that the series simply doesn't deliver the quality expected from a production with such a massive budget. The storyline is criticized for its lack of emotion and connection, while the leads' performances have been described as mechanical, missing the charisma that won fans over in their previous projects. Viewers have also noted that the first episodes are crucial to capturing an audience, but When the Stars Gossip failed to make that initial impact. Instead of hooking viewers, the series seems to have pushed them away week after week. The general consensus is that with such a high investment and a talented cast, the result is deeply disappointing. Are you watching this drama? What are your thoughts? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.